Okay, so it has come to my attention that there's some people who want to know how I make my animations, and more specifically the Daisy Bell animation that I just made. So I thought it'd be fun to go through one of the shots from the animation and some other behind the scenes, but specifically for now I'm just going to focus on the scene where Caine and Bubble act out getting married, which was the main reason why I wanted to remake the first animation. I knew that I would need to make a scene that was starkly different from the first one, so I thought that this would be a fun way of doing it. So here's what the animation looks like in the final version.
It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage.
And here's some behind the scenes. This is what it looks like off screen.
It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't
Sorry for the lag. It's a pretty heavy scene, which made it kind of challenging to animate.
upon the seat of a bicycle.
But you can see that while animating the shot, I decided to have Caine's head behind his body, lined up. You can't really tell from the camera view, but yeah, his head is off to the side because it was clipping with his arm too much. And also see that I have his eyes offset quite a bit. So with Bubbles' rig, I gave him a little tiara. Thought that'd be funny. I wanted to do some sort of flower effect, but in the end I just ended up using a filter to get that effect that you see. So the rig that I downloaded for Bubble is made by Zajax, I think that's how you pronounce it, on Twitter, and they're very good rigs. But I was having some issues with his eyes not being visible through the veil, so what I had to do was modify it pretty heavily, remove a bunch of modifiers and stuff. That's what controls the mesh in Blender. So that way his eyes would be floating outside of the veil so you could see it better. And the veil was pretty fun to make. So the texture, I downloaded a texture of like lace or something, I think. And then, yeah, lace. And then here's the node setup that I ended up going with. So here's the texture. And what I did was I changed the color to like a golden color. I think that's it, yeah. So that's how you can kind of see that the bottom part of the veil is more gold. And then I created a mask. This is the mask that looks like this. And then I mixed the two colors of the veil together. And another issue I was having is that Bubbles just wasn't showing up clearly enough. So I had to use a transparent shader. And then you can see that that controls how much of the lace you can see versus how much it's see-through. So that was helpful for that. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, the bike. So the bike, I downloaded just a model off of a Sketchpad, but it was in an FBX file format, so it was split up into a bunch of parts. So that was actually quite a bit of work to modify it. Right here you can see. So what I ended up doing was, for the pedals, I made it an automatic system so that I can just animate the pedals spinning and then it'll automatically rotate. So Caine's feet are parented to each of the pedals, so they automatically move and animate the legs. And you notice that I had to give him some extra long legs because it wasn't sitting right on the bike. And I also had to play with his scale to make the bike feel right. So that's why there's a bigger Caine and a smaller Caine right in the same area. And the entire bike is parented to this empty, so that just lets me move around everything. And it's really nice, I think, because it just keeps everything nice and organized. And you can notice that his head does not move in rotation with all the other things. You can see it just kind of free floats. And I had it that way because I feel like his head detaches from his body quite a bit, and by default his head was parented to his torso, and it just wasn't looking right. So I had to keep his head locked individually like this, so that way I can rotate it independent of everything else. So I'm gonna talk about how I actually made the animation. So I rendered out some early passes of the bike animation, not this part where he goes across the screen that way, but the bike. So you can see I'll show a blocking pass.
I can't afford a carriage.
So in that blocking pass, you can see that it's just his head moving, and that's how I animated all the scenes. I just started with his head because that's like the main point of motion. And then what I would do is I would go and do a lip sync pass with these controls. And then for special mouth shapes, like O, I would stretch his mouth out like this. So like when he says to or you or stuff like that, then I would have this. But other than that, I didn't really modify this. Oh yeah, these were helpful. So these controls are stretch controls for his jaw. And I feel like in the later episodes especially, Caine's jaw becomes much more like stretched out and cartoony as opposed to the pilot episode. And the rig by default looks more like the pilot episode, with his jaw being like shorter. So I always stretch it out. But yeah, that's just a quick little overview into how this was animated. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask in the comments. I love reading all your guys' comments and answering all your questions, especially animation questions, because I love animation. So thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for more fun animations.